5 o'clock, I'll open Planning Committee meeting of the 11th of October. We have present councillors Basalt, Dutta, Alderman Bloomfield, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Lohberger, Councillor Harvey, Deputy Lord Mayor, myself. We have apologies from the Lord Mayor and Councillor Sherlock. To start off with, I'll ask if somebody can move that we confirm the minutes of the 6th of September as well as the minutes of the abandoned meeting of the 20th of September. Councillor Dutta, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. It's carried. Consideration of supplementary items. Indications of pecuniary and conflicts of interest, are there any? One's going twice, no. Transfer of agenda items, I don't believe there's anything really to transfer. Power through. Item 5, consideration of items with a deputation. We do have one. So moved. Thank you, Deputy. All those in favour say aye. Aye. No, carried. Committee is now acting as a planning authority. So we have one item on the agenda today, one application on the agenda today. Item 6.1.1, 250 Macquarie Street. And we do have a deputation from the applicant, Mr. Chris Love. If you want to come to that table just in front of you, Mr. Love, and grab one of those microphones and pull it as close as you're able to. And you'll have 5 minutes to speak. I'll give you a warning when there's 30 seconds left, and I'm sure we'll have some questions for you when you're done, so feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Right. Hello, councillors and committee. So Chris Love, I'm part owner and authorised agent of Local Property Group, the owner of the property. The property consists of a ground floor office and upper residence as approved existing use. Bought the property in May 2021, relying on the street parking. Put a development application for improvements and renovations to that property, and that was received, that was PLN 21772, received in March 2022. At that point, the street parking for that property was still in play. I was advised late last year that the street parking, some 3 to 4 car parks that the property had relied upon for decades, perhaps 100 plus years, maybe not cars back then, but horse and cart, would be removed due to a new lane on Macquarie Street being put in. Pitt and Sherry have been appointed to undertake community liaison, and they advised me around November last year of the removal of street parking. I'm providing a deputation regarding to the current development application that I understand that it's only the car parking, beg your pardon, the reversing out of the car parking that's been refused and the balance has been accepted. That's my understanding. That's different. I'll only be addressing the car parking today at any rate. So in summary, with no parking, I wish to outline briefly the financial impact regarding the office and residence. It is quite significant. I have a couple of letters from property agents. I'd also like to clarify the issue around the inability to to manoeuvre on site and leave in the forward direction. I'd also like to go through the precedents of other existing properties between the Southern Outlet and Mole Street that reverse out onto Macquarie Street currently. I presume they've got existing use rights to continue to do that. Go through the safety items regarding viewing distance as well. That's my outline, and I'd like to just get into that now, if that's okay. I've got 2 letters from real estate agents suggesting that the removal of any parking within, well, certainly along that side of Macquarie Street will have a negative impact on the property of around $200,000. I can read that if those letters if required. Moving on to the clarification of the inability to turn on site, I've had 2 traffic engineers and a civil engineer to advise whether we could achieve on-site turning to allow forward forward access onto Macquarie Street, all have said it's impossible, even with the use of a car turntable. We can enter the property safely and reverse safely using the B85 template. So that is achievable with that template. By way of history, December last year, I had a conversation with the development engineer, Ish, who advised that if we could prove that no acceptable on-site turning was achievable, that reversing out on Macquarie Street would be accepted or acceptable. Then in March this year, I was advised by Keith Burton that reversing onto Macquarie Street would be flatly refused, and I understand that's why I'm here today. In terms of mitigation and safety, we have the building is set back from the curb by some 3.5 metres. The buildings are set back from the front fence by 2.5 metres, providing good pedestrian safety.
30 seconds left if you want to wrap up.
Good pedestrian safety, and also, and the traffic engineer supports this, good sight lines up Macquarie Street. Without parking at the site, Pitt and Sherry, the community liaison, have allowed parking across the street. If you wanted to park there, you'd have to walk 350 metres up round Antle Street and around, or across 4 lanes of traffic, which is pretty untenable, I think, from a safety aspect. So I'm asking council to consider all of that.
Okay, thank you, and that's time. Questions? I've got Councillor Kelly.
I just thought the turntable option could have been achievable, looking at that plan and dimensions and all that. I'm just surprised it's not achievable.
It's really interesting, and we explored that a lot with both traffic engineers. It's the forward motion of the car that swings out and collides with the adjacent building. I do have a number of emails and turn path diagram which show they correlate in both cases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you reverse in from the road?
Yes, that's achievable. I believe that's achievable, yes.
So, had you spoken to anyone, or has anyone had been a conversation about that being acceptable with any council officer? Or
I haven't asked that of a council officer. I'm not clear on that. My designer may have asked that question, but I certainly haven't.
would you be prepared, if it was a condition of approval, to have that as a condition of approval, that you only reverse into the space and drive out?
That's fine from my perspective, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Deputy?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thanks, Mr. Love. So is this your residence, or what's it being used for?
Sure. So it's I suppose, an investment property. It's had existing use rights as a office. It's a 3-storey building, office on the ground, lower ground floor, and then a single residence above. It's been like that for 30, 40 years, and I bought it as an investment property.
And how much did you say that parking spot was worth?
Between 200 and 250,000. Yeah, I've got 2 letters here which I'm happy to read out from 2 different real estate agents.
It's a question that I'll ask the officer. Thank you. That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions? I do have a couple, and I'll have some questions for the staff as well. I understand you don't, we've just spoken about the value of the parking, but you're not required, or you wouldn't be required to provide this parking to get this approved. When we're talking about stopping a car in the middle of traffic on a major road to reverse in, or the possibility of reversing out when there's difficulties with sight of the footpaths and sight of the streets, I see either a best case scenario, a huge issue with congestion, worst case scenario, potential safety issues. Is the parking spot completely necessary?
No. It just has that impact. There's a number of impacts. It impacts the capital value, it impacts the leasing value, and it impacts the sale value as well. Who would buy a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home with 0 parking, and or indeed rent that property without any parking as well?
Any other questions?
Through you,
Councillor
Chair.
Harvey.
I'm just looking at map or page 5 of 27. It's on the bottom, or on the screen. It's page 13. There's an area in there called proposed unit 4 and 5.
Yes.
What are they? Are they built?
They're under construction.
Okay, so that limits your ability to have parking. So where are those parking? Where are those units going to park?
They're accessed off Davey Street.
Okay. So they have a laneway to drive into those. Okay.
That's correct,
Yep.
yes.
And you couldn't do a configuration that used that space, so you could turn around and drive out.
If you're talking about the private open space of unit 4 or 5 on your, if you can, I'm not sure what the plan you're looking at. Yeah, so we looked at manoeuvring into there, reversing a number of times, and it's the clash of the building at 248, which in all cases just cannot get the front of the...
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, all right. And you do know that we can't take any sort of economic reason into account, like it's irrelevant to us that
Fair enough.
you might lose money or not make as much or whatever. Yep.
Any other questions? Councillor Basalt.
Just one through you, Chair. So, Ms Love, the parking, was there ever parking space where the proposed or under construction units are that the older house was using?
No. No.
But there would have been space prior to you developing units 3 and 4 to have a turning manoeuvrability there?
Potentially, yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? If not, thank you for your time. If you want to take your seat again, we'll get into debating the item.
Well, Chair,
Councillor Harvey.
I don't think there's any way around this. It doesn't look like you can reverse a car out. And I'm also conscious that most cars, or what is it, the most popular cars today on the road are bigger cars, not smaller cars. So you could probably have a couple of motorbikes out the back or a little tiny car, but when you consider that most people are driving SUVs, those Ford Ranger kind of cars, it might be a challenge. If this did get, if this refusal was changed, then more than likely you'd have a large car going in the back, and I can't see how that's going to be of benefit to anyone getting in and out. So I'm happy to move the recommendation. I know we can continue to debate it, but I just can't see a way around this. It's recommended for refusal. The rest of the development is not. That'll still go ahead. It's just the car parking.
Sorry, is it the question? Well, it's for refusal as it currently stands.
So what does that mean? A new DA without the car parking?
DA. Now, if the applicant were accepting of a deletion of the car park as a condition, then we would be comfortable in accepting that and recommending approval.
So
with the private conditions.
So if I was to move for approval without the car park, then we'd be okay tonight.
Well, I would only I'd only recommend that if the applicant was prepared to accept that. Obviously, not having the applicant's support for that leaves you open for challenge of tantamount to refusal with that condition.
Before the debate continues, because this is, I think, the crux of the issue with this application. Ms Love, would you be willing to entertain an application that doesn't include the parking spot? You can answer from there if you like.
If the council, if the committee were otherwise consistent in the refusal of the car parking element, but were otherwise supportive of the rest of the application, the answer is yes. So understand that if I say no, then I've got to put in a new DA, is that correct?
That's correct.
So in which case, reluctantly, I would.
Okay, thank you for that.
Well, in that case, I will say it one more time with emphasis to the director. So if we approve this tonight, we've heard that the applicant is okay with us deleting the car park.
Yep.
Are you okay?
I'm okay, assuming the applicant won't then appeal that decision.
Well, they can appeal the decision for refusal anyway.
Well, they can.
Yeah.
But the issue is that having that condition leaves us open. Do you understand? Leaves us open, and that's why I wanted to hear from the applicant. Would he be accepting of that and not proceed with a subsequent appeal? Because we leave ourselves open to being challenged on the basis that refusal of the car parking is tantamount to having a condition associated with the deletion of the car park. There's an argument that it's tantamount to refusal. Now, if the applicant was saying, no, I'll accept that condition and won't appeal, then we don't run the risk of a successful appeal against that.
Okay, I get you. All right. So will we need something in writing?
Well, I mean, I think we can take the word of the applicant at this point if he's saying that he is accepting of that condition and won't subsequently appeal. If not, if he wants to take it to appeal, then my recommendation would be that we stick with the condition with the
refusal, and we can't be sure that it won't be appealed. So,
well, I think what we're saying is that we'd be happy. I'd be happy to take the word of the applicant.
Chair, can we confirm that? Is that a question we can ask? Are you prepared to accept it with the deletion of the car park and not appeal it? Can we ask that through you, Chair?
Ms. Love?
So if I accept this, then there is no right to appeal subsequent.
No, well,
Right.
yeah.
Director?
Yeah, so look, what as a council, to safeguard ourselves of being challenged over a technicality, we would normally have to uphold the recommendation for refusal on the issue of the car parking. Now, because we can't guarantee that any subsequent appeal is lodged. Now, it's open to council, the committee, to take your word that you won't appeal, and then we can make a recommendation of approval subject to the deletion of the car parking. Yeah.
Chair, perhaps the debate should continue before the applicant makes a decision on
Okay,
that.
well, let's do that.
Okay.
You're moving
I'll
that?
stand by with my.
Okay.
What was it?
Well, it was both.
Well, just had refusal or
Yeah,
something.
I'll move for refusal, just so it's all crystal clear.
Yep.
Because there is the possibility that we will face a planning appeal, and it's cleaner if we've got a recommendation for refusal to defend.
I suppose now I've got Councillor Kelly and then Councillor Basalt, but before, and well, we better start writing these down. Before I get to that, if, just on this, if we approved it with the condition of being that the car park, and the applicant did appeal, would that mean that we would then have to seek outside counsel to defend that appeal because it was against our recommendation?
No, not necessarily, but it does leave us open to a challenge on the technicality that that condition is tantamount to refusal, and we could have our decision thrown out.
But then if that came back, we would just refuse it.
Well, that's right, but there might be certain costs incurred by us because we wouldn't have made a legitimate decision, arguably.
I'm
So that's a dilemma that we're faced. Now, if we had an applicant that said no, and we've had this before, where an applicant has said no, look, I can live with that, and impose a condition, and we'll all move on. But clearly, the applicant tonight may not be in a position to make that call.
Fair enough. Okay, so we'll get back. We've got Councillor Kelly, Councillor Basalt, Councillor Loberger, and then I saw Alderman Bloomfield with a hand up, and Councillor Dutta. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the Director. But just so I'm crystal clear in this as well, is this the opinion of the Council's officer to say that it is unsafe to reverse out? It's just an opinion, or is it based on some hard and fast rule and regulation that is definitely would hold fast in Tascat?
It is a strong, qualified advice that it is unsafe to do so.
By council, is that through knowledge from someone else, or just an interpretation of council officers' opinion of that?
Well, it's qualified engineers, and Mr Burton is in the room, who's our senior development engineer, and he can provide that advice.
If you'd like to ask some questions of Mr. Burton, if you'd like to ask some direct questions of the officer that wrote this, I'm happy to.
Okay, thank you. Also, too, through you, Chair, to the Director, have we ever knocked back an application similar because of reasons of unsafety for reversing out onto a street? We have? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Could it be conditioned, as I previously mentioned, upon reversing in, which is safe? And I do exactly the same down the road here, and I know a lot of other people do, and it's nothing unique, and it's very safe. I never reverse out onto Macquarie Street, but I park on the side, I wait for the traffic to get a break, and I reverse in and drive straight out, and it's absolutely 100% safe to do that. Could this be conditioned upon that?
Not in my opinion. There's little basis in which to police such a condition, and how do you enforce it?
Yeah.
You've got a bit more space as well. If you stay
Could I ask through the engineer, through you, Chair?
To the Taylor, maybe just quickly introduce yourself, and then Councillor Kelly's got some questions for you.
Look, I just as a background to my questioning here is that I think it's more than fair and reasonable to say that there is a loss of amenity with not having a car space. There's nothing evil with having a car space for development. We're trying to encourage inner city living, and all that's great. And I don't think there's anything heinous to do that. But through you, Chair, to the traffic engineer here, could that, in your view, be safe to do, reverse in from a standing to at a safe point into a space?
No, not in that area. The Macquarie Street has 32,000 vehicles per day and carries the majority of heavy vehicles in and through Hobart. So stopping suddenly and reversing up the tight laneway wouldn't be applicable.
So there's no layover place in that immediate driveway area, forward or back of it, to be able to do that?
There's parked cars there currently, and there would be a bus lane there.
Yeah, so they would have to park on a moving traffic lane.
Currently, the applicant would have to park or stop in the far right-hand lane and then impede the second lane of traffic in Macquarie Street to complete the turning manoeuvement.
And if a turntable was successfully able to put in there, that would, so driving in nose first and driving out nose first, that would be safe?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's still a matter of the access is still too tight and narrow for that provision, as was discussed by
So you're saying
Chris.
they can't nose in and nose out? It's not safe to do that?
Well, given Chris' comments that he's explored that.
Oh, yeah, the turntable option, but that's just a problem for him to solve. I was just thinking if it was solvable for him, the turntable there, that'd be acceptable.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
And we did explore that option with Chris post advertising.
Right, yeah.
We couldn't come to a solution.
Right, okay. And also too, as Councillor Harvey mentioned, so there's a lot of big cars parked and all that. A small car, I would have thought, could fit on a turntable. I've seen a few turntables done, and they're done really, really well. And if it was a small car, you can't condition it only a small car only that was sizeable.
Yeah.
It had to be to the standard, would it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I guess if for some reason it was possible for the applicant to be able to achieve a satisfactory engineering turntable solution, that could be done at a later time in a separate development application, I guess. Yeah. Because I just think it's very unfortunate that a solution can't be done there. That's fine. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Chair.
I've got Councillor Basalt next.
Thank you, Chair. Look, my observations for this are a couple of things. One, for anyone questioning reversing out over footpaths, Macquarie Street, these are like inner city streets, and it's pretty close proximity to a school actually as well. The inherent nature of the streets as they were designed in 1900, around that period, was that they didn't separate the footpaths from driveways and front fences. If you look at modern subdivisions, footpaths are separated by a good metre from the front fence of the properties to allow sightlines specifically to keep children safe from reversing cars. So we have to be, we have to consider the unpredictable nature of children, but also just the pure sightlines that if someone's rolling down there on a scooter or something like that, 15 k's an hour, and a Dodge Ram tailgate pops out of nowhere, that's not acceptable. A second observation is that, in fact, this property did have space for off-street parking, but the applicant's chosen to develop units in that space and then retrospectively apply or post hoc apply for a parking space which is unable to have the manoeuvrability in there. So my kind of sympathy for the dilemma that the applicant find themselves in is limited. But all of that said, I think that the developer in the room is a fairly pragmatic gentleman by the sound of it, and I would be supportive of approval with the refusal of the car space for pragmatism for the council, for pragmatism for the applicant to get the best compromise that we can get. And perhaps, Director, if there was something that was knocked up in writing in an email while we were talking, would that be a stronger case for that scenario in your eyes?
I mean, unless there was a statement from the applicant that, and I don't like to necessarily put the applicant in that position, because in fairness, he needs to consider his rights and how he wants to proceed. So I'm really reluctant to recommend that as a way forward.
Would it be though a more solid evidence base for us in terms of safety from protection from appeal if it was in writing?
It certainly would indicate his strong commitment for it.
Yeah. So look, I mean that would be my personal view on the way forward. I don't think that without prejudicing further debate, I don't think that I certainly can't support the current arrangement, and we'll hear from others around the table, but I would be open to that risk tolerance in the interest of pragmatism for everyone here. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lohberger.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question first through you to the Director. Sort of, we're all tied up here talking about the car parking space, but there's actually another ground of refusal, is that correct? Relating to the gravel?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, ultimately, the application does create unacceptable risks for pedestrians on the street, and that does include school children, as Councillor Posselt has pointed out. And it also will create risks for vehicles on Macquarie Street. And look, I guess I will be supporting the staff advice to reject this one on that basis. I don't think there's much to be gained from amending this particular proposal. So, yeah, look, I will be voting to refuse. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lohberger. Alderman Bloomfield.
I have a couple of questions for the engineer through you. We've heard how it's difficult to negotiate a car for this property, but if we have a multiple bedroom property and also other places underneath, how would a taxi, for instance, any alternative transport negotiate this property? So how would a taxi be expected to negotiate this property?
I don't think a taxi driver would drive up there, personally.
How
think
would,
it
how would
would
someone get to that house, they want to come home? How do they get there?
They would have to stop on the street, I would say. I mean, current condition, there's parking up the right-hand side of Macquarie Street, so there's fair room for them to stop. Yeah.
And a removal van, how would they move house?
I don't think the removalist van would be able to get in there. They would have to block the right-of-way for the period.
And the other question I had, this is probably more to do with Director Noy. Is it possible to adjust, for instance, the DA with the proposed units, for instance, to allow enough room, or perhaps this is a question for you, if the DA was adjusted for those 2 units there, would there be enough room potentially for the turntable if we just adjusted that design there? Is it a matter of just half a metre or a metre on those units to try and create enough room, or is it something completely?
It's a further development back, so the site goes kind of the development of the site goes all the way back. So when you start moving those front ones, you'll be moving the rear units as well, which are already under construction and in proposal stage. So.
And the last question I had was actually, I honestly am quite uncomfortable with any anything from this room where we remove the legal right to appeal. I think that might be a common law right, and I don't think we actually have the ability to do that. I don't think that would be appropriate nor fair, even though it means, unfortunately, that we would have to refuse carte blanche. Anyone in Australia has the right to change their mind and appeal, and I think we need to respect that. So we simply cannot say you lose your right if you want this. That's not appropriate.
Yeah, and just on that, I think, and not to put words in Mr. Noy's mouth, I don't think the suggestion was ever that the applicant should be waiving his rights to appeal. We like, as you said, we can't do that. I think it was more in other instances where we've had applicants that have been, yeah, no, that's fine, I'm happy to do that, and there's a level of confidence that it wouldn't be appealed. There's less risk for council to make that decision, so it was more about a level of confidence. We can't expect people to waive those rights, but I might just, was that about?
Yeah, look, you know, for a pragmatic outcome, we've often negotiated that position when there hasn't been any other third-party rights of appeal, so we had some certainty in those instances. So, but you know, where we've got an applicant that wants to consider his further actions, then it would be my recommendation that we don't take that risk.
Councillor Dutta, and then the Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question to the Director, just for clarification. Now, with regards to the appeal that we are suggesting that it not be taken, have we in the past come across a similar situation where we have gone down that path, suggesting to the applicant that if we approve this, it won't be taken to appeal?
Yes, we have, where we've got an applicant that is accepting of the that condition. So in general terms, the applicant has been accepting of the condition and has not appealed. However, I think it's fair to say that we haven't got that assurance at tonight's meeting.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Now, it's my understanding that there has been some negotiation and discussion between the applicant and the Hobart City Council officers, and they haven't found a solution to this. It appears that they have remained stuck to their position, regardless of the fact with the discussion that was taken place between the two parties. Now, with that knowledge, we have heard the arguments today and the recommendations made by staff. Now, I have difficulty, when I read the report, it is very clear, under the 4 clauses, both in acceptable solution and performance criteria, E672, E673, E675, and E76, all those quite strongly they are not fulfilled. It doesn't satisfy that. And I have difficulty to go against the recommendation of staff because it is so very clear. Taking into consideration that there was discussion, there was negotiation, and the applicant then said, no, we will go ahead with this. So that's my difficulty. The point number three that I want to make is that with regards to the appeal, again, the point has already been made. That's why I asked that question. The common law right remains, and we've got to be very careful if we go down that path. That's why I was asking if there is, a precedent. If not, we could be held liable for duty of care if something happens, realizing that, we knew it was foreseeable that accident could take place, and then we went down. But I'm quite happy to go along with the four reasons that the acceptable solution in the performance criteria wasn't satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Through you to Mr. Noy. Mr. Noy, in relation to the value of a car parking spot, could you tell me what that usually is calculated as?
Well, I don't have sort of current valuations of car parking,
but what have we, like when we were talking about 66 Burnett Street, we had a particular...
yeah, in terms of construction of a multi-storey car park, for example, the actual cost of construction was, 40 or 50,000 space.
Okay, but the value that
the construction
tonight
cost,
is somewhat different from that.
Yeah, there might be a difference between construction cost and market cost. I know some spaces in Salamanca, the silos, for example, have been sold separately for a quite significant amount.
And you can do that. It doesn't need a planning application.
I don't. I can't comment on that, but I have heard those sorts of valuations.
Is that something that we consider when we're making a consideration against planning?
No, it doesn't go into valuations attributed to such facilities.
Look, I've read the report. I know that the history has been a bit of back and forth. I know that there was advice in relation to, like, one traffic engineer provided some advice and that was reviewed, and I am very pleased that that was reviewed because I think safety is paramount in this kind of situation. Traffic flow, as Alderman Barakis has talked about, is pretty important on those arterials. But it's really that narrowness of and kind of blind structure of the driveway with no passing points. Pedestrians use that driveway as well, as I understand. So to me, it's a matter of safety on a number of fronts. So I can only support the refusal.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Kelly.
So it was through you, Chair, Councillor Posselt, were you going to propose that you still are supporting the application if the applicant drops the car park? Does that got to be moved for that to happen, Chair?
That does have to be moved because the active motion at the moment is the officer's recommendations from Councillor Harvey.
So I'd be happy to support that as well, but would you...
You can move it if you like.
And the gravel.
And the gravel, yeah.
Yeah, you can move it as a foreshadowed. Would be probably the best. Yeah, if you want to.
You're not going to be moving that?
I think we've had a little bit further advice. It's probably. I think for me it was a really delicate pendulum, Chair, and the additional kind of commentary from Director Noy probably has just tipped the scales for me. But I'd encourage you to move that.
Yeah, I thank you for your Chair. I do take your point, what the Chair of Planning is saying about potentially, going through and all that. But another way of looking at that is, well, if it does go to appeal and the applicant was successful in being able to have the car space there, well, he was right anyway. I know we can lose and I know we can win and then we can still claim costs on that. I mean, I don't really see the big deal about that. There's a bit of loss of face, I guess, but it's a process, and he's either right or wrong. And by us holding a gun to a person's head by saying, well, you can't do that, I question whether that's possible as well. I'm just not trying to be devil's advocate.
I think that's a bit harsh on us. Sorry, Deputy.
Well, it's
No, no.
We're not
in
holding a
relation
gun to anyone.
Well, no, okay. I've withdrawn that comment. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to be fair in the whole scheme of things. Yeah, I'm not batting for anyone. I just don't like to be perceived that we might have an angle on this which isn't quite right. You know, it's just a bit of a technical thing here.
Just so we're clear, no one's suggesting that we expect the applicant to waive their rights to appeal. That's not being suggested at all, because as you've said and others have said, we can't do that. So that's not being suggested. That's not being suggested. But are you wanting to foreshadow an approval without the car park?
I was just keen for the applicant to be able to get on and do the work with this, and we're all keen for people to have houses and all that sort of stuff. And if it's not, it's going to be months and months again now for this to come back through the system, and more costs, more officer time, and more. I'm just keen to get something going without the car park, so that was why.
So you'll foreshadow?
I will foreshadow.
Okay.
Yeah, just so in the interest of progress.
Look, I think as it stands, I'd like for this the building to be approved. I think that would be that's. I think ultimately we're generally on the same page here. The issue is the access and the car park. Normally, like I'm the last one to be advocating that we not include or not approve car parking when it comes to new developments. But as I said earlier, best case scenario, this would cause a huge congestion issue with people stopping their cars and reversing or creeping out into traffic to make sure they don't hit anybody. Worst case scenario, this is a serious safety hazard for children and pedestrians, as Councillor Basalt and others have said, and then also just as a traffic, because if there's parked cars there and people aren't able to actually see up the street as they're reversing out, there's nothing, to say that there isn't a risk of people reversing into traffic, and causing collisions as well. So I can't see any way in which the driveway and the parking spot as is being proposed is appropriate as per the planning rules that we have. On the topic of the foreshadowed and the risks and the appeals, I'm kind of, my thinking is that it's worth testing. I think if we approve this with the condition that it be approved without the car park, it has a risk of being appealed. If the outcome is, as Mr. Noy said, the potential outcome is that it be argued on a technicality that it was tantamount to refusal, that might incur a cost to council. It would then also incur a cost to the applicant to then bring this back to council as a new application. And if he brought it back in this configuration, it would, I think, as per the sentiments of the floor, it would be refused. So I think it's a gun to each other. Everybody's got a gun to everybody's heads in this situation. So I'd actually be preferring to. I'd actually be preferring to support the foreshadowed. Just on the basis of that, I would like to see this get built. I would like to see the bulk of this approved. I just can't in good conscience approve what I think is a potential safety hazard. Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Chair. Just through you, I've just noticed that this expires on the 13th of October. Now, if the applicant was to give you more time, can this be negotiated with the applicant and the officers?
Oh, it's a matter delegated to the
so we
committee.
delegate
So the next committee meeting's in a fortnight's time. So it's not something that could be negotiated and get to the next committee.
Councillor Basalt.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I guess I want to provide further commentary in relation to the foreshadowed motion and just listening to your argument. I think it probably is reasonable So a little bit of flip-flopping here, and I'll accept that, but I think it is probably reasonable to accept Councillor Kelly's foreshadowed, and I think I will support that. And the clearest thing is that we're not removing the applicant's right to appeal. They can still do that. However, the chances of that appeal being successful based on the expert advice provided is limited. And as you've pointed out, Chair, if the application was brought back to Council in the same form, it would be likely refused again. So I do have a high risk tolerance. I do think the risk here is quite low. The applicant seems like a reasonable person to me who has taken on board the conversation of the debate, and I think I'm happy to support the foreshadowed, but would ask if Councillor Kelly would accept an amendment in there that the advice is provided in writing from the applicant.
I'd be happy with that, yeah.
Yeah, can we do that, Joe? You happy with that? That the advice is, the acceptance of that decision is provided in writing by the applicant.
Oh.
Well, didn't we just discuss
We just
that has no
discussed
weight?
that.
We did discuss that, but there is some more weight that comes with a written...
We need to make a decision this evening, I think.
We do.
And there's also the issue with gravel that in the driveway as well.
Oh, look, I'll get to you because there's other people that are waiting in line, Councillor Harvey. But
Question through you to
Deputy.
the Director. Is there likely to be any costs associated with going anywhere near Tascat associated with
Well, there'd be,
appeal?
yeah, certainly officer time would, there'd be a cost incurred as a result of that.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Alderman Bloomfield.
I just wanted to ask, I'm not sure if we've formalised the foreshadowed motion, but I'd like to make it very clear that I'd be happy to support the foreshadowed motion on the basis that it was the removal of the car park and also the gravel was addressed per the recommendation. But I want to make it absolutely clear that this room shall not at any point remove his right to protest against this thing. I don't want that right removed. It absolutely must be there. And I feel the conversation tonight has absolutely suggested that we can manoeuvre that, and I do not believe we should even go near that. So I want it to be very clear that...
So just on that, and Ms. Anoy can back me up or refute me, as he pleases. The talk about providing things in writing and all that, I think has been to provide some sort of confidence or some sort of certainty, but it's not a matter of should we or should we not remove the applicant's right to appeal. We cannot do that regardless. Even if everyone here unanimously voted to remove the applicant's ability to appeal this, we can't do that. It's not even a conversation that we can entertain. It'd be an improper decision.
That's right, but the applicant can say that he would be happy with that condition and that as an outcome. So at no point would, and this is where the dilemma is with this approach. If we don't have and we've only exercised this approach where the applicant has indicated, yes, I'm happy with that as an outcome and I'll live with that. And council and committees has taken a pragmatic approach in those instances. Now, we just don't have that position expressed by the applicant in this instance. Yeah.
I just feel that we should not even be implying such. He has the right, allow him the natural right that he is.
Well, sorry, Chair, if I, under those circumstances, it's my strong advice is that the recommendation you have before you is the safest for the council as a committee as the planning authority, and then there is little doubt that we can't be challenged on a technicality. That our basis for refusal is sound. It's not tantamount to refusal if we incorporate that condition, and the applicant can either appeal that decision for refusal or lodge an application without the car parking and have that considered.
I've got Councillor Dutta and then Councillor Basalt, and then I'd like to wrap this up, I think.
Thank you, thank you.
For another couple of hours.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question through you to the Director. If this was taken to the appeal, it is my understanding that the staff will be able to defend it. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Therefore, the point that I want to make here is this, that if we take the recommendation of staff, which is very strongly based both on acceptable solution and performance criteria, there's no doubt about it. Point number one. Point number two is this, that if the applicant then wants to appeal this, in the mediation process, there can be that negotiation. We will take the car park away. Then it'll be much safer way to go down that path, I think. Thank you.
That's a good point, Chair. There is a much more formal process to amend an application, Section 22, under the relevant Act, that allows you to substitute the application more significantly than you could condition it through this process.
That'll be much safer way to go, I think, for us.
Okay.
So just to clarify, so what you're saying is that we can achieve the same outcome, that the applicant does not need to submit a new DA through the DA system and start from point one again, but they can in fact lodge an appeal, have mediation, remove the car park themselves.
That's
and
correct.
that would be a more efficient, cost-effective and timely.
I'm not sure. Mr. Eichen, your experience in those such matters?
Thank you, Mr. Noy. My understanding is the cost for an appeal at the moment is about in the order of $300. So there would obviously be expenses associated with going to the appeals tribunal and lodging an application and potentially formal representation. I think an application with the council would be more than $300. Advertising alone would be $450. So it's likely to be more expensive, I think, through the planning process. But in terms of time, we have a 42-day time frame, whereas I think the tribunal have a sort of 3-month time frame in which to resolve the matter.
No other pressing comments. We have a motion for refusal as per the officer's recommendations, and then we also have the foreshadowed motion for approval with the deletion of the car access. So I'll put the motion for refusal, the officer's recommendations. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Show of hands. All those in favour?
Councillor Basalt, Councillor Dutta, Alderman Bloomfield, Councillor Lohberger, Councillor Harvey, Deputy Lord Mayor, and Alderman Barakis.
And against? Okay, so that's been refused. So we'll move back to the agenda. We have 7.1 advertised applications reports.
So moved.
Oh, Councillor Harvey, I think, got the jump on that one. Mr. Eichen, is there anything of note?
I've just been instructed to move the microphone closer to me. Just two matters, thank you, Chair. The first is item number 5, which is 90 Melville Street, which will be coming to you next round, which is the third iteration of development on this property. As you may have seen in the press, the change is that it now has no residential component in the commercial office space. So that's the first one. The second one is item 20, which is listed in the table there as 32B Forster Street, but the main address is 3 Gregson Avenue, which is a communal residence sort of social housing proposal on council-owned land, on Crown land, but includes council-owned land. It'll also be coming to you next round. It has at the moment 15 objections to it, so it's coming on that basis, as well as the fact that it includes council land. So they're the two I wanted to flag for you.
Questions, comments? Councillor
Well,
Lohberger.
there's a number of short stay applications in there.
Just to back Councillor Lohberger, 7 short stays and 16% of all applications are short stay related.
Any other comment? Going once, going twice. No, I'll ask that the motion as moved by Councillor Harvey be approved. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Can say no. Carried. Delegated decisions report. Any questions or comments?
So moved.
Thank you, Deputy. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Can say no. Carried. Questions without notice. Are there any questions? Councillor Dutta and then the Deputy. I got.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the Director, can you please advise about the recommended planning scheme amendment with regards to the short stay accommodation? It's my understanding that we were supposed to submit this to the TES Planning Commission, but the process was wrong, and then we had delegated the responsibility. We just want to know, where are we at present? What's happening in the light of what we are seeing with the appeal?
Look, I'll take that one.
Thank you so much,
Chair.
Deputy.
Yes, I have two questions. It relates to dilapidated buildings and previous breaches, and I'll send that through to you, Rach and Ben. Is that right? So, firstly, what legislation protects owners of conjoined dwellings when there is dilapidation of one property impacting on the rigour of the non-neglected conjoining dwelling? Is that legislation robust, and if not, what would improve it? So I imagine it's state legislation. Do you want to take that one on notice?
Yes.
And the second question is, when someone has breached a development approval previously and has been successfully prosecuted, such as 55 Mount Stewart Road or any of those, is there any consideration of those previous breaches when a development application is lodged by that applicant?
Look, I'll take that one on notice. We'll provide something in writing, but I think the answer will be fairly short.
Either yes or no. No, well, all right, could you expand on the answer? I'll put that in as well.
Yeah, 5 pages at least.
You missed an
Any other questions? Nope. Very good. Okay, with that, we move to the closed portion. So if somebody can move that we close the open the close. Councillor Dutta. All those in favour say aye. Aye.